years ago. I was home for the Christmas holidays from university, and I was flying back from South Dakota to Salt Lake City, Utah, and flying out of Rapid City, South Dakota. It was wintertime, and the plane had a connecting flight in Denver, Colorado. So the plane we fly from Rapid City to Denver on a smaller plane, a 737, and then from Denver to Salt Lake City was a bigger flight, more people, yeah, 747. Not a jumbo, just a normal 747. And so, I got there, and it was a winter storm, because this is December or January. It's after New Year's. So, these are the days before cell phones, and, we're talking like 1980s here. To show you how old this story is, Pan Am still existed, yeah? Pan Am Airlines. And Eastern Airlines, too, still exist. I don't know if they exist anymore. I don't think they do. In America, there was Pan Am Airlines and Eastern Airlines. And, yeah. And I was on a Delta flight. This flight had about 100 and maybe close to 200 people on this flight from Denver to Salt Lake City. Okay, so they were getting ready to the plane that was coming in that we were supposed to get on. So all the passengers were deplaning, as they say in America. They were coming off the jet, and so everybody was standing in line because I think the plane that stays there for about half hour before they start boarding again, because they have to restock the beverages and all, clean it up real quick and stuff like that. And so everybody was standing in line. So there's about 200 people standing in line, ready to board that plane. Then a couple of mechanics came up, and they told they said that this bird is down. They said they found something wrong with one of the brakes, and they said this bird is down for the evening. They said, like, oh no, and I've never been in that situation before, and I didn't know what to do. And so I was like, well, just sit here. At least I'm inside a building. It's warm. Yeah, so I'll just sit here and see, to see what happens. And so then they came on the intercom, and the flight attendant said that, yeah, the flight so and so from Denver to Salt Lake City has been canceled, and they said Pan Am Airlines has a flight that's going to be they're just finishing up boarding, and they're going to be leaving the terminal in 5 minutes, and they have 60 seats open. And so, holy shit, people started, running in that direction, carrying bags, and whole families were running down the hallway. Dads had their kids in their arms, and moms too. And I mean, moms had kids in their arms as well, and they were all running down, because it was cleared down at the end of the airport terminal. Yeah, it was a hell of a run. And I thought, oh Jesus, look at all these people that are already ahead of me. Yeah, and there's no way. There's 60 seats. There's about 80 people heading down there. There's no way I'm going to pass any of those people up. Yeah, and even though I was athletic, I was like, there's no way they're already, clear down there. So I thought, I'll just wait around and see what happens. And then about 20 minutes later, again the flight attendant said, okay, for those of you that were on that canceled Denver to Salt Lake City flight, Eastern Airlines has 75 seats open. First 75 get there, you get on your plane. Now at this time it's about 6 o'clock in the evening, okay, and this is really dark, and because it's winter time. So again, a whole bunch of people ran down that way. And I was like, oh, this is. I don't even know where Eastern Airlines is. Yeah, and so I just looked, and they were running even further than the Pan Am flight was. Yeah, so I said, oh, geez, now I don't know what to do. And then people were coming back because they didn't make it. Yeah, because just 75 seats were available. And more than 75 people took off that way, and then they didn't all get seats, so they're turning around, coming back, cussing around. Yeah. So then you have 100 and what is it, 75 and 60 seats. Okay, you have 135 people had gotten on flights, and they've happily on their way to Salt Lake City. So, so there were about how many of that? That means there was about 65 of us or so left in the terminal. And, most of these guys are college kids returning back to university, yeah, someplace. And so we were all just sitting there. And I saw one of the strangest things in my life. And the visual is so strong, I just never forget it. There was this man that was about my height, and he had wide shoulders like me. And he had long black hair. His skin was kind of pale, but he wasn't a white guy, but his skin was kind of pale, and he had only one arm. And he was wearing a long black coat, the kind of, the really long overcoat kind of thing, down to his, below his knees, yeah. And he had black pants, a black shirt. His hat was black. His hair was just pitch black, and he had a stick, yeah, a really big stick. That's like the kind Moses used when he parted the sea, the Dead Sea, like that. He had a really big stick, and he was sitting with it like that. He was holding the stick. It was like he didn't have it resting on anything. He just held it up, and he was just sitting there. I noticed that. I looked in his direction, and see, in Lakota culture, it's not nice to stare at and look people in the eye, especially strangers and people you don't know. You're not supposed to do that in public. So I didn't really look at him in the eyes. He was wearing, I think he had glasses, if I remember correctly. And I looked in his direction, and I noticed, from my peripheral vision, I just felt this guy was glaring at me. So I just really, really, in my peripheral vision, I would look to my right, and then my eyes would, go to the side of the sockets and take a look at him. And sure enough, he was looking at me. Yeah. So I just pretend looking at the flight, the next flight's coming in and stuff like that. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna make a swift move. I'm gonna turn my head really to the left, and while I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna pretend to scan the room, but I'm gonna look at him and see if he's still looking at me. So I did that, and sure enough, he's looking at me. He was looking at me the whole time he was sitting there. Yeah. And then the lady on the intercom said, "Okay, who was it this time? Frontier Airlines has about what'd they say? About 55 seats, or 57 seats available. First come, first serve. So again, a whole bunch of people ran down that way, yeah? And then there was some nerdy guys that were saying, "Oh, what's the use? Yeah, let's just sit here and we can have a really big adventure. We'll call it Trapped in Denver." Real off guys. And so I thought, well, what the hell? I'm gonna have this. I'm gonna be in their adventure too. I'm just gonna stay. I'm not gonna run down there. Why waste all that and get all sweaty, then come back because I didn't get a seat? So I just thought, okay, well, if worst comes to worst, I could just call somebody from South Dakota and say, can you wire me some money? I'm gonna get a bus ticket and just, you know, get out of there, yeah, or whatever. So then I'll just stay here and just see what happens. That guy was still sitting there looking at me the whole time. And then finally, after they announced that third flight, there were just about 8 of us left. Yeah, all college guys, university guys. Some of them probably going to Brigham Young, because that's Brigham Young is just 45 miles south of Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City has the University of Utah, so they're 2 huge universities. So us 8 people were probably from those 2 schools, yeah. And so we were just sitting there. Nobody knew each other. And 2 guys knew each other. They were just having fun. Now by this time, people, it is 10 o'clock at night. So 4 hours had gone by. Well, actually more, about 6 hours, because we arrived about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and so we were. It takes about half hour to get off the plane and so forth, and then go get your bag and check it in the next flight and stuff like that. Yeah. So I was sitting in that area for about 6 hours, from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Now 10 o'clock, they made that announcement concerning this. Oh no, that was 8 o'clock. Okay, so. Just all you need to know is that 3 flights had gone since 4 o'clock, and about 100 and of the 200 people that were supposed to be on that flight, 192 people had made it. Yeah, they all got on 3 different flights, and they were already in Salt Lake City. They already made it to Salt Lake City. Okay, so there's just 8 of us sitting there. After they announced that third flight and everybody ran down that direction, this guy then, I looked at him, just by chance, I looked at him, he smiled, yeah, kind of nodded his head a little bit. He stood up and started walking down the hallway. And so I thought, I gotta see, where's this guy going, yeah? So I got off my seat and I looked down the hallway, and there was nobody, absolutely nobody down that hallway. It's just like he vanished into thin air. There's no bathrooms nearby. There was just a straight hallway. It was just like about 5 seconds, yeah? And 5 seconds after he got up, I got up. I didn't want him to know that I might be following him. So I waited 5 seconds. He should have been just a few steps down. He was gone. Just like he disappeared. That always baffled me. I never forget that. Yeah? Just at that time, the mechanic guy came up and he said, "Okay, we got it fixed." And they said the plane has to be in Salt Lake City. Because the next day, that plane is going to be used early in the morning to fly people from Salt Lake City to Portland, Oregon, or something like that. Yeah, so that plane has to get to Salt Lake City that night. They're not going to wait till morning. So they said, yeah, and some pilot came in and said, yeah, the plane has to be in Salt Lake City tonight anyway. So the pilot came up to us 8 people and he said, "Okay, so people, you ready to fly?" Just 8 of us, yeah. So, and they said, "You know what's really going to be funny?" He said, the pilot said, all the people that went on those other 3 flights, their luggage is still in that plane. So even though they made it to Salt Lake City hours ago, they're probably still at the airport. They didn't get, in a way, they're not ahead of you at all. They said because they still have to wait for their bags. So we thought that was funny. Yeah. so so we boarded the flight, and the stewardesses were like saying, they were joking with us. Yeah, they look at our ticket and say, "Oh, first class right here." So like, "Oh, cool! That's so cool. We all got to fly first class. Isn't that nice?" So from Denver to Salt Lake City, I don't know, it's about an hour and a half flight, I think, or 2 hour flight, or I can't remember. It wasn't that long. And so we were drinking champagne, and and we got to eat really nice first class meals, and they wanted to, because we were the only ones that waited. Yeah, we sat there the whole time. 6 hours, over 6 hours, we were sitting there. And so these flight attendants, they wanted us to feel good about that. Yeah, so they let us sit in first class, and we got to eat first class meals, like steak and lobster and things like that, and drink champagne all the way. Yeah, that was so cool. That was so cool. So we landed into Salt Lake City about 1 o'clock in the morning, I think. By the time we got there, we were we were coming up, from our plane, and we had our bags, and the 192 people that flew before us, they were all waiting there. They were all pissed off, and they really thought, they got to Salt Lake City before we did, but they had to wait just like we did. They had to wait for their bags. Yeah. So but see, we had it over them, because see, they got crowded into planes that were, by the time they got on there, they're all full, so they have to sit just wherever there's a seat. Yeah. See, they didn't get to choose where they want to sit. They have to sit wherever there's an available seat. And so I think some of them were kind of mad, because the 8 of us said we could sit anywhere, and the flight attendants told us to go ahead and sit in first class. So we were sitting in first class. We were eating steak, lobster, drinking champagne, all the way to Salt Lake City. So you see, sometimes you think you get there quicker, and you still end up having to wait. Yeah. Shoot. Anyway, crazy story. But that always puzzled me. Yeah, this man. I always wondered, does that mean something? I didn't know anybody there, but when that guy was sitting there, other people didn't seem to notice him. So I wonder, was I the only person seeing this guy? It's a really, really interesting kind of experience. It's one I'll never forget. Yeah. So anyway, this is just a funny story I thought I'd share. See, he's flying, just 8 of us, eight goofy guys. Yeah. 8 goofy off guys flying in first class, and it's midnight, but we're eating steak and lobster. Oh, that was so cool. Oh man. Should I that really brings back a good memory, huh?